Love is a deception that makes you forget who you are. Arthur Schopenhauer. Before we begin, here's a small ritual. Write in the comments one word that accurately describes your current state. Sign it, and let's get started. Love begins not with understanding, but with a sensation. A silent pull from the depths of the unknown. It whispers promises of fulfillment, of unity, of endless joy. Like a secret current, it carries a person beyond the shores of their familiar self into the endless ocean of dreams. From the earliest days, humanity has worshipped this sensation. Songs, poems, and legends have built temples in its name. Entire civilizations have risen and fallen under the banners of love, chasing its elusive spark. It has been painted as the highest achievement of the human heart, the final prize for a life well lived. But beneath this radiant facade lies a truth so sharp that it cuts through illusions like a knife through silk. Love, as it is commonly known, is not a pure force. It is a masterfully crafted illusion, a veil drawn across the eyes of men and women alike. It binds them to a dance choreographed not by free will, but by forces far older and colder than human longing. The heart believes it seeks happiness, but it obeys ancient scripts written in the blood of countless generations. Scripts that care nothing for happiness, fulfillment, or truth. Scripts concerned only with survival, replication, and the silent march of life through the corridors of time. The first taste of love intoxicates. It lifts the spirit, sets the skin aflame, colors the world with a brilliance so vivid it feels unreal. And that is because it is. The brilliance is not a revelation. It is a mask. A carefully woven spell cast by nature itself, using the very mind of the lover as its theater. The mind, flooded with chemicals, ceases to see clearly. It sees not the other, but a reflection of hidden desires. It projects onto the beloved an ideal woven from needs, hopes, and unspoken wounds. The beloved becomes a mirror, reflecting not who they are, but what the lover yearns to see. This is the first layer of the great deception. A person believes they have found another, but in truth, they have found only themselves, hidden behind a fragile dream. And so the stage is set. Underneath the soft glow of affection, powerful forces move unseen. Biology, culture, psychology, all conspiring to weave a tapestry so intricate that few ever question its reality. Few ever dare pull at its threads and watch the illusion unravel. But once the unraveling begins, it cannot be stopped. Truth, once glimpsed, demands to be known fully. And the truth is that love, as it is sung in songs and worshipped in stories, is perhaps the most exquisite, the most devastating, and the most necessary lie ever told to humankind. It is not cruelty that created this lie, but necessity. Without it, the human race would wither, scatter, and disappear into the dust of forgotten epics. Love, in its shimmering beauty, is the golden chain that binds souls to the wheel of life, driving them forward into futures they cannot see and promises they cannot keep. To understand love is not to destroy it. It is to see it clearly, to stand in its presence without falling to one's knees in worship. It is to love with open eyes, to walk through the illusions with the steady steps of one who knows both the beauty and the danger of the path they tread. For only those who dare to see love as it is, not as it pretends to be, can ever hope to find something deeper than illusion, something stronger than fantasy. They can find, perhaps for the first time, a freedom that no dream can provide and no lie can sustain. And so begins the journey through the labyrinth of love, where every wall is a mirror and every mirror a doorway. A journey not toward another, but toward the raw, unvarnished truth of the self. The roots of love do not sink into dreams or poetry. They plunge deep into the raw soil of biology, into the primal needs of a species determined to survive at any cost. Love, for all its beauty, is first and foremost a mechanism, a strategy perfected by nature to ensure the continuation of life. Evolution cares nothing for individual happiness. It is a blind force, concerned only with survival, reproduction, and adaptation. To serve this end, it created the illusion of love as bait. Without realizing it, humans became instruments of this vast and indifferent design. When two people fall in love, what actually occurs is a chemical storm within the brain. Dopamine floods the system, igniting feelings of pleasure and reward. Serotonin levels drop, creating obsessive thoughts and emotional fixation. Oxytocin and vasopressin weave bonds of attachment, giving the sensation of profound connection. This chemical cascade mirrors the effects of potent drugs. In brain scans, the areas activated by early romantic love are the same regions triggered by addictive substances. Love is, in the most clinical sense, a biologically induced addiction crafted by evolution to override rational thought and secure mating. The rush of falling in love blinds the mind to flaws, risks, and contradictions. It compels the individual to invest time, energy, and resources into another, often without conscious calculation. This blindness is not a flaw but a feature. It ensures that logical barriers collapse, that bonds form quickly and deeply, increasing the likelihood of reproduction before doubts can take root. Nature's genius lies in masking necessity as ecstasy. What feels like the discovery of a soulmate is, in fact, the triumph of ancient chemical scripts written long before consciousness emerged. These scripts have one goal: to drive the body toward union, to ensure the mixing of genes, to perpetuate life. At the height of passion, individuals speak of destiny, of timeless connection, of eternal bonds. Yet from a biological standpoint, these sentiments are irrelevant. Once the primary objective is achieved, conception, the biochemical storm begins to subside. Studies show that the intense euphoria of early love typically wanes after a period of about 12 to 18 months. This decline is not a tragedy, it is programmed. Maintaining the high of initial infatuation would be metabolically unsustainable. The body, efficient and ruthless, reduces the intensity to conserve energy and redirect focus toward offspring survival, resource gathering, and social integration. The bitter truth is that love, in its early stages, is a form of temporary insanity, a socially sanctioned madness that serves a cold and pragmatic purpose. It is no accident that many of the behaviors associated with early romance, obsession, reckless risk-taking, emotional volatility, mirror those observed in clinical cases of mania and addiction. Even heartbreak, that most human of sufferings, has a biological function. It discourages the individual from making the same reproductive investment mistake repeatedly. It imprints lessons of caution, selectivity, and social learning, refining future mate choices. Yet despite knowing this, people continue to seek love with fervor, to chase its high, to surrender to its call. This is because the scripts operate below the level of conscious awareness. They are ancient and powerful, immune to reason, immune to cynicism. They are the silent architects of human destiny, shaping lives, histories, and civilizations from behind the veil. The illusion is necessary. Without it, the human species would fragment. Too aware of the brutal indifference of nature to invest in the messy, costly business of bonding and procreation. The veil of love softens the cruelty of biological imperatives, allowing individuals to dream even as they serve functions they do not fully understand. This understanding does not diminish love. It illuminates it. It reveals the double nature of existence, the need to serve survival hidden beneath the beauty of subjective experience. Love feels transcendent precisely because it must. If it were seen in its raw form, as a mere biological trick, its power would evaporate, and with it, the future of the species. The body knows what the mind forgets. It remembers the millions of years spent evolving under pressures so vast and merciless they are almost incomprehensible. Every heartbeat, every flush of desire, every ache of longing carries within it the silent command: survive, reproduce, endure. In this light, love can be seen as the greatest performance ever staged. A masterpiece of biological theater, complete with fireworks of emotion, symphonies of sensation, and illusions of eternity. It is a drama in which the players believe utterly in their roles, even as the script remains hidden. Understanding this does not strip life of meaning. On the contrary, it offers a new kind of reverence, not for the fantasy, but for the astonishing complexity of the machinery that makes the fantasy possible. To see love as both a biochemical necessity and a profound human experience is to embrace the fullness of what it means to be alive. It is to stand at the crossroads of fate and freedom, recognizing the forces that shape desire while choosing, if one dares, to love with open eyes. It is to honor the beauty of the illusion while never mistaking it for truth. Thus, the biological trap remains, but it need not enslave. Awareness transforms the cage into a garden, the script into a choice. One may still choose to love, but it will be a love born not of blindness, but of lucid wonder. And that, perhaps, is the first step toward freedom, the freedom to love without lies, to live without chains hidden beneath the golden mask of passion. If biology lays the foundation of love, culture erects its temples. The raw, primal instincts are shaped, adorned, and transformed by centuries of storytelling, ritual, and art. Through culture, love ceases to be a biological drive and becomes a sacred ideal, a shining beacon that promises ultimate fulfillment. From the earliest myths, love was framed not as a function of survival, but as a divine force. In ancient Greece, the chaos of passion was attributed to the whims of gods like Aphrodite and Eros. In medieval Europe, courtly love was exalted as a noble quest, detached from the vulgar needs of the flesh, a pure and spiritual devotion often aimed at an unattainable beloved. Religions sanctified love further, framing it as a divine bond blessed by a higher power. Marriage became a sacrament, a holy institution binding souls as much as bodies. Love was no longer just about union, it became the gateway to eternal salvation, a mirror of the soul's union with the divine. Over time, literature and the arts wove increasingly elaborate fantasies around love. Poets sang of perfect unions destined by fate. Dramas depicted love as a force that could conquer death, defy kingdoms, and transcend time itself. Novels built entire worlds around the idea of a singular, all-consuming love that would heal all wounds and complete the self. The birth of modern media intensified this mythology. Cinema brought love stories to life with dazzling realism. Songs broadcast the ache of longing and the ecstasy of union into every corner of daily existence. Advertising harnessed the imagery of love to sell everything from perfumes to diamonds, embedding the notion that love was not just a feeling, but a product, a lifestyle, a proof of personal worth. Under this relentless assault of images and narratives, the collective consciousness absorbed a powerful message. Love is not only desirable, but necessary for a complete and meaningful life. Without it, one is incomplete, broken, lesser. This cultural programming creates expectations so vast, so intricate, that real human relationships often collapse under their weight. No real person can embody the perfect lover painted in songs and films. No actual relationship can sustain the ceaseless high promised by romantic myths. When reality fails to match the fantasy, disillusionment sets in. The partner once seen as a soulmate becomes a stranger. The passion once felt as eternal fades into routine. And yet, rather than question the myth, individuals often blame themselves or their partners for the failure to live up to an impossible standard. This is the second great deception of love. Not only are humans biologically wired to seek it, but they are culturally conditioned to misunderstand it. They are taught to seek salvation in another, to believe that love will erase their loneliness, heal their wounds, and grant their lives meaning. But the truth is harsher and far more liberating. No other can complete what is incomplete within the self. No romantic partner can fill the abyss of existential longing that resides in every heart. Love can enhance life, but it cannot redeem it. Culture's insistence on perfect love creates a cycle of endless seeking and perpetual dissatisfaction. It turns lovers into commodities, relationships into transactions, and emotions into currencies. People become addicted not to love itself, but to the fantasy of love, the high of the new, the promise of completion, always just out of reach. This addiction is reinforced by industries that profit from it. Wedding industries, dating platforms, entertainment empires, all thrive on the idea that love is the ultimate prize, the final answer to all human yearning. They sell dreams, and the dreams sell products. The tragedy lies in the fact that even genuine, deep connections are often sacrificed on the altar of fantasy. Real love, with its flaws, its mundanities, its slow and sometimes painful growth, is dismissed as insufficient. The mind, saturated with idealized images, demands fireworks where there are embers, demands ecstasy where there is quiet companionship. The most insidious aspect of this cultural programming is that it makes individuals complicit in their own deception. They chase illusions willingly, desperately, believing that somewhere, someone will finally match the script written in their minds. They abandon what is real in search of what is imagined. To awaken from this dream is to face an uncomfortable truth. Love, real love, is not a constant high. It is a choice, a discipline, a daily act of seeing and accepting another as they are, not as one wishes them to be. It is messy, imperfect, vulnerable, and it is beautiful precisely because it does not conform to the fantasy. Freedom begins when one stops seeking the perfect lover and starts embracing the real. When the glittering illusions fall away, what remains is the raw, aching humanity of another soul. No scripts, no roles, no grand narratives, only presence, only truth. To love in this way is to rebel against a culture that demands perfection. It is to reclaim the power to define love for oneself, to strip away the layers of programming and find in the rubble a connection more honest and enduring than any fairy tale. In doing so, one not only liberates oneself from the tyranny of impossible expectations, but also honors the true potential of love, not as salvation, but as a profound, imperfect partnership in the shared mystery of existence. Love, in its most common form, is not an awakening but a forgetting. It is not a discovery of the other, but a flight from oneself. Behind the soaring words and trembling hearts lies a deep and often unrecognized truth. Much of what is called love is an attempt to escape the burden of individuality. At the heart of every human being lies a wound, the wound of separation, of being an isolated consciousness adrift in an indifferent universe. This wound is unbearable when faced alone, so the soul seeks refuge in another, hoping to dissolve the pain in the warmth of union. This impulse, though natural, creates a dangerous illusion. In the fever of passion, the boundaries of the self seem to blur. The beloved appears as a savior, a mirror in which all that is broken, lacking, or lost finds its restoration. The self feels whole not because it is healed, but because it is temporarily forgotten. Carl Jung described this process as projection. The individual projects the disowned parts of themselves, their idealized self-image, their unfulfilled longings, their hidden shadows, onto the beloved. The lover does not see the other as they are, but as they need them to be. In this enchanted state, the beloved becomes larger than life, infused with divine qualities they do not possess. Every smile becomes a blessing, every glance a revelation. The ordinary is transfigured into the extraordinary. Yet all of this magic exists not in the beloved, but in the mind of the lover. The tragedy is inevitable. As time passes, the projection weakens. Reality, steady and indifferent, reasserts itself. The beloved, stripped of the fantasies placed upon them, emerges as they truly are, flawed, complex, human. And in that moment, the disillusioned heart cries betrayal, not realizing that it was the architect of its own deception. This pattern repeats across countless relationships. The cycle of idealization, disillusionment, and abandonment forms the core of many modern love stories. Each time, the lover believes they have simply chosen the wrong person. Each time, They vow to find the one who will truly complete them, and each time, they unknowingly seek to relive the same illusion. Modern psychology has documented this phenomenon extensively. Attachment theories, studies on emotional dependency, and clinical observations all reveal the same pattern. Many love relationships are built not on mutual recognition, but on mutual need. They are attempts to soothe inner wounds through external validation. But no amount of external validation can heal what is fundamentally an internal rupture. No partner, however loving or devoted, can erase the existential loneliness woven into the fabric of human existence. Seeking salvation in another only deepens the wound, because it reinforces the belief that one is incomplete. True intimacy begins not with the merging of two broken halves, but with the meeting of two whole individuals. Individuals who have faced their own emptiness without flinching. Individuals who do not seek to be completed, but to share the fullness they have found within themselves. Such love is rare because it demands a level of inner work that few are willing to undertake. It requires the courage to confront one's own shadows, to embrace solitude without fear, to build a self that does not crumble in the absence of another. Without this foundation, love remains a fragile and desperate enterprise. It becomes a transaction. Give me your affection in exchange for my security. It becomes a battlefield. Fight for my approval or risk my abandonment. It becomes a prison. Conform to my projections or face my rejection. This is why so many relationships, even those built on intense passion, ultimately collapse. They are houses built on sand, on dreams and needs, rather than on reality and strength. When the storms come, as they inevitably do, there is nothing solid to hold on to. Awakening from this cycle is painful. It requires the shattering of cherished illusions, the mourning of imagined paradises, the acceptance of one's own solitude. But on the other side of that pain lies a love that is real, a connection that does not depend on fantasy or need. Real love is not about finding someone to lose oneself in. It is about standing fully in one's own being and choosing to walk beside another who does the same. It is not about erasing differences, but about honoring them. It is not about completing the self, but about witnessing and supporting the self of another. To reach this level of love, one must first be willing to be alone. Not alone in the sense of isolation, but alone in the sense of self-sufficiency. To sit with one's own fears, longings, and dreams without rushing to fill the void with another's presence. Only then can love become a true gift, rather than a desperate plea. Only then can it rise above the cycles of projection and disappointment. Only then can it serve not as a means of escape, but as a celebration of life shared between two sovereign souls. In understanding this, one begins to see why love, as commonly portrayed, is the most exquisite of deceptions. It promises to heal what only inner work can mend. It promises to complete what only self-realization can fulfill. It promises to save when salvation was never needed in the first place. Thus, love, for all its beauty, becomes a mirror reflecting back the deepest truths of human existence. The longing to be seen, the fear of being alone, the eternal dance between connection and individuality. In facing these truths without illusion, love does not disappear, it transforms. It becomes less dazzling but more enduring, less intoxicating but more sustaining. It becomes a quiet strength, a shared pilgrimage, a mutual honoring of life's mystery. This love does not shout from rooftops or demand grand gestures. It whispers in small acts of presence, patience, and kindness. It grows not in the heat of passion, but in the steady warmth of shared existence. And it endures not because of fantasy, but because of truth. To reach it, one must pass through the fires of self-discovery, the deserts of loneliness, the storms of disillusionment. But for those who do, a deeper, more luminous love awaits. A love not of forgetting, but of remembering. Not of losing the self, but of finding it and offering it freely to another. When the illusion of love begins to crumble, the pain that follows is not simply the loss of another, but the collapse of a dream. It is the death of a belief carefully nurtured and desperately clung to. The heart does not just mourn the person, it mourns the image it created, the future it imagined, the salvation it expected. Heartbreak is not an accident. It is the natural consequence of investing one's identity in a fantasy. When the beloved fails to embody the ideal, the dissonance is too great to ignore. The mind struggles to reconcile reality with expectation, and in that struggle, agony is born. Scientists have discovered that emotional pain activates the same brain regions as physical pain. A broken heart is not a metaphor. It is a literal physiological event. The body responds to the loss of love with symptoms that mirror withdrawal from addictive substances, insomnia, depression, anxiety, even immune system dysfunction. There is a phenomenon known as broken heart syndrome, or stress cardiomyopathy, where extreme emotional distress temporarily weakens the heart muscle. The metaphors of heartbreak, it turns out, are rooted in the body's very flesh. Yet even in this suffering, nature's hand can be seen. The pain serves a purpose. It discourages the repetition of behaviors that led to failure. It forces reflection, adaptation, and growth. It carves lessons into the soul with a knife made of longing and regret. But the lesson is not always learned. Many, desperate to escape the anguish, rush to replace the lost illusion with a new one. They plunge into new romances, seeking to recreate the high, to resurrect the fantasy. In doing so, they perpetuate the cycle, ensuring that the same pain will return again and again. True healing begins not with finding another, but with facing the void left behind. It requires the courage to sit with the emptiness, to understand that the real loss was never the other person, but the illusions projected onto them. In this raw space of mourning, transformation becomes possible. Stripped of fantasies, one can begin to see oneself clearly. The wounds exposed by heartbreak are openings through which self-awareness can enter. They reveal the places where love was used as a mask, a shield, a drug. The pain of losing love is the pain of losing a part of oneself, the part that believed salvation could be found outside. It is a confrontation with the hard truth that no one else can bear the burden of completing a life. No one else can carry the weight of a soul's longing for meaning. This realization, though brutal, is liberating. It marks the end of dependency and the beginning of sovereignty. It clears the ground for a new kind of love, one not built on illusions or needs, but on shared truth. In facing heartbreak without running, without numbing, without blaming, a person reclaims their own heart. They gather back the scattered pieces of themselves, not to rebuild the old illusions, but to forge a new wholeness born of truth. Through the ruins of fantasy, a new landscape emerges, one where love is not a desperate escape, but a conscious journey, not a promise of salvation, but an offering of presence, not an addiction, but a choice. In the ashes of broken dreams, a deeper life begins. The hunger for love, deep and relentless, does not arise solely from biology or culture. It is also shaped by the earliest experiences of life, by the silent imprints left by the first bonds of attachment. Before a child speaks a word, before they understand the world, they absorb one crucial lesson. Love is survival. An infant depends entirely on the caregiver for existence. Love, attention, and care are not luxuries. They are lifelines. In these early moments, the foundation for all future relationships is laid. If love is consistent, nurturing, and secure, the child grows with a sense of stability. If it is inconsistent, conditional, or absent, the child learns that love must be earned, chased, or feared. These early attachment patterns do not disappear with age. They become invisible frameworks that shape adult relationships. A person with anxious attachment may cling desperately to partners, fearing abandonment at every turn. A person with avoidant attachment may run from intimacy, equating closeness with danger. Even those with secure attachment carry subtle echoes of their earliest bonds. The longing for love, then, is not just a quest for connection. It is a reenactment of childhood needs, a search for the safety that was once absolute and is now forever elusive. Every romance becomes, in some hidden way, a search for the original caretaker, a replay of the primal drama of need and fulfillment. And this vulnerability does not go unnoticed. Systems of power, social, economic, political, have long understood that controlling love means controlling people. The family unit, enshrined as the cornerstone of society, serves not only emotional needs, but economic and political ones. Marriages form alliances, secure inheritances, stabilize social orders. Industries thrive by exploiting the human need for love. The wedding industry promises a perfect day that will guarantee a perfect life. Dating platforms sell the dream of finding the one, turning the search for connection into a game of endless consumption. Advertisers weave love into every product, suggesting that happiness and desirability can be purchased. Even governments benefit from stable, love-based units. Citizens rooted in families are less likely to rebel, more likely to conform, more easily managed. Love, when institutionalized, becomes a mechanism of social control, binding individuals to roles, expectations, and responsibilities. The tragedy lies not in the existence of these systems, but in their silent operation. Most people move through life unaware of how deeply their desires have been shaped, how their dreams have been engineered, how their yearnings have been commodified. The cultural narrative insists that love is the highest good, the ultimate purpose. But behind the narrative lies a web of interests, profiting from the endless cycle of longing, fulfillment, disappointment, and renewed seeking. Freedom begins when this web is seen for what it is. When love is recognized not as a pure, spontaneous emotion, but as a phenomenon shaped by forces both internal and external. When one stops blaming oneself for failed dreams and starts questioning the dreams themselves. To love authentically requires disentangling from these invisible chains. It demands a radical honesty about one's own needs, wounds, and conditioning. It demands a willingness to seek connection not as a remedy for emptiness, but as a celebration of fullness. In reclaiming love from the systems that seek to own it, one reclaims life itself. No longer a pawn in a larger game, the individual becomes a creator of meaning, a sovereign soul capable of choosing love not out of need, but out of freedom. Thus, the journey through the illusions of love is not a descent into cynicism, but an ascent into clarity. It is a shedding of lies, a tearing away of masks, a return to the raw and powerful truth of human connection. Love, once freed from manipulation, shines brighter than any fantasy. It is not a promise of eternal happiness, but a living force, dynamic and real, capable of enduring, not because it denies reality, but because it embraces it. In this liberation, love is no longer a prison disguised as paradise. It becomes a path, not to salvation, but to something even greater, truth. Awakening from the illusions of love does not destroy love itself. It strips away the fantasy to reveal something quieter, stronger, and far more real. In seeing the mechanisms behind the passion, in recognizing the scripts written by biology and culture, a new freedom arises, the freedom to choose love consciously. Real love is not born from desperation or dreams. It grows from presence, from the deep acceptance of oneself and the other as they truly are. It is not a search for completion, but a meeting of two complete beings, each carrying their own wounds, their own light, their own truth. This kind of love demands nothing and promises nothing. It exists without guarantees, without illusions, without conditions. It is a shared journey, not an escape, a mutual witnessing, not a merging. It is love not as addiction, but as awakening. To walk this path is to abandon the need for perfect stories and embrace the imperfect beauty of real connection. It is to love not because one must, but because one chooses, with open eyes, steady hands, and an unshakable heart. We're sure you've discovered plenty of value, so subscribe now and stay connected.